The desert wind blew dust into the air as the sun burned high over the slave market on planet Vortok. The crowd stood silent, waiting for the moment. It was not every day that a human war hero was offered a reward by the alien lords. Colonel Davis, a man known for his bravery and calm heart, stood tall in the middle of the market. But even he looked surprised by what he saw chained before him. Two alien women sat on the ground, wrists shackled in thick, rusty chains. One had silver skin with long white hair that covered her face. She looked weak, but her glowing eyes showed quiet fire. The other had bluish-purple skin with glowing lines on her arms. She didn't look up, but her fingers kept moving, tapping the chains softly like a code. "These are your options," said the alien commander with a smirk. "Both captured during the war, both broken, useless now. You may choose one as a reward. Colonel, pick wisely. Or pick for Fournette, makes no difference to us." The crowd laughed, soldiers and aliens alike. They expected Davis to walk over, lift the chin of one woman, and claim her like some cheap trophy. It had happened before many times. But Davis didn't move forward, not yet. He stared at the two women silently, like he was reading something invisible. Whispers started in the background. "He's just pretending to think. He'll take the silver one, she looks softer. No, the other one has stronger legs. Maybe he wants a fighter." But Davis said nothing. He crouched down, steadious. This famous soldier knelt before the two slaves, the silver-skinned dead. Girl looked at him with wide eyes, confused. The bluish one flinched, as if expecting a blow. But he didn't hit, didn't touch. Instead, Davis asked one simple question. "What are your names?" Silence. Even the crowd grew quiet now, confused. Slaves didn't have names anymore, not here, not after being sold. Only numbers, brands, and scars. Still. After a long moment, the silver girl opened her mouth. I was called Elena," she whispered. The other looked at her sharply, then looked back at Davis. "Kari," she said, low but firm. Her voice carried something strong, something proud that hadn't died. Davis smiled and stood up. He turned to the alien commander and the watching crowd. "I choose both," he said calmly. The words hit like thunder. "What?" The commander barked. "You may only take one. It's tradition law." Someone else shouted, "You must choose." "I did," Davis replied, voice still cool. "I chose both, or I walk away with none." More shouting followed, panic and disbelief. The alien guards raised their weapons, unsure what to do. But the commander lifted his hand, silencing them. He was curious now, staring at Davis like a puzzle. "You're serious?" he asked. "You want two broken things? Both are damaged, dangerous, maybe even cursed." "Then you should have kept them locked," Davis replied. "But you gave me a choice." The commander chuckled, then nodded slowly. "Fine, human. Take your little collection," he said, with a twisted grin. "But don't come crying when they kill you in your sleep." The chains were unlocked, and Elena and Kari were pushed forward. They stumbled but caught themselves. Davis didn't touch them, didn't drag them. He just nodded and walked ahead. The two alien women followed, one step at a time, behind them. The market crowd whispered again. Some called him stupid. Some called him noble, but all of them knew this. Colonel Davis had made the choice no one expected. And that meant the story was far from over. Colonel Davis's camp was far from the busy cities, hidden between old rocks and a dried riverbed. The sky above was orange with two moons glowing dimly. A quiet wind blew dust across the ground as he walked ahead, the two alien women behind him. Silent, unsure. He didn't look back often, but he knew they were still following. Their footsteps were light, almost too quiet. He wondered if they would try to run or attack, but they didn't. Finally, they reached his shelter, a simple metal cabin built from scrap and old human tech. The door slid open with a sharp hiss and warm light spilled out. Inside, it smelled of old leather, metal, and clean air. There were beds, a heater, food packs, and water, not much, but it was safe. You can stay here, Davis said as he pointed to the beds. Eat first, then rest. Elena looked at the food carefully, her eyes full of suspicion. Kari didn't move at all. Her arms crossed tightly. Davis didn't push them. He placed the food on the small table, walked to the other side of the room, and began removing his armor. The room was quiet, except for the soft clinks of metal and his calm breathing. After some time, he heard a sound crunching. He turned slightly and saw Elena eating. Slowly, carefully, Kari remained still, her eyes scanning the cabin like a soldier looking for traps. Later that night, Davis lay in his bed with one eye open. He wasn't foolish. He knew they didn't trust him yet. He didn't blame them. They had been treated like animals for who knows how long. No words could fix that overnight, in the darkness. Elena whispered something in her alien language, a soft, broken sound, like a prayer or memory. Davis didn't understand it, but her voice shook as if she were crying quietly. Kari didn't speak, but she looked over at her with a flicker of concern in her cold eyes. The next morning, Davis stepped outside and started his routine. He chopped wood, checked the defense shields, and repaired a solar panel. He acted like it was just another day. Inside, the two alien women stayed quiet, watching him from the window. Elena was the first to move. She stepped outside and stood. Near the edge of the small cliff, her white hair blew in the wind, and her eyes scanned the dry valley ahead. She looked tired, not just in her body, but in her soul. Davis walked up beside her and handed her a warm drink. She didn't take it at first, but after a moment she accepted it with both hands. "Why?" she asked, her voice soft but sharp. "Why did you choose both of us?" Davis sipped from his own cup before answering. "Because I don't believe anyone deserves to be chained," he said. "Not when they still have eyes that speak." Elena blinked, confused. "My eyes." He nodded. "Your eyes." "They weren't begging for freedom," he said. "They were daring me to give it." She looked away, but her hands tightened on the cup. Davis didn't press more. He knew some walls took time to break. That afternoon, Kari finally spoke. She found Davis working on a broken drone in the back room. "You keep weapons," she said, eyeing the shelves, guns, grenades, traps. Davis nodded. "I live alone on a planet filled with raiders, monsters, and spies," he said. "I need to survive." Kari narrowed her eyes. "You expect us to try and kill you?" Davis smiled slightly. "No," he replied. "I expect you to stay alive." Kari was silent for a long time. Then she reached into her boot and pulled out a small blade. She placed it on the table. "You missed one?" she said. Davis didn't take the knife. He simply nodded and got back to work. That was the first sign Kari didn't trust him, but she didn't fear him anymore. Either that night, Davis noticed the girls didn't sleep on the floor anymore. They used the beds, ate the food, and moved more freely. But still, there were no smiles, no laughter, no warmth, only quiet eyes, watching, always watching. He wondered what they had been through. What kind of pain made someone so silent, so guarded? He didn't ask. He just let them be. But deep inside, a new fear started to grow. Davis had broken the rules when he took both of them, and rules had consequences, especially on alien planets, where spies were everywhere. As the night fell once more, he stared up at the stars. He didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was clear. These two women were not just slaves. They were survivors of something far worse than chains, and now that they were free, the real story was just beginning. The sun rose slowly over the rocky desert, painting the sky in soft gold inside the quiet shelter. Colonel Davis brewed morning tea while checking his old datapad. His eyes kept drifting to the corner of the room where Alina sat cross-legged. She was silent, but her hand trembled slightly as she pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Kari stood near the window, staring outside. Her arms crossed. She hadn't spoken much since giving up her hidden knife. But Davis knew she was thinking, watching, analyzing everything while preparing their simple breakfast. Davis noticed something he had missed before. Both women had a small, glowing mark on the back of their necks. It's almost like a tattoo, but strange alien tech mixed with biological symbols. It pulsed softly with blue light, like a heartbeat. He didn't say anything at first, but as Kari turned to grab a ration pack, the light on her neck glowed brighter just for a second, and then flickered out. Davis's soldier instincts kicked in. That wasn't a normal brand. That was a tracker. His heartbeat grew faster. Were they being tracked even now? Did someone already know where they were? After breakfast, he waited until the girls stepped outside to warm themselves in the morning sun. Then Davis quietly sent a scrambled signal through his hidden uplink. He contacted a man he hadn't spoken to in years, Commander Riven, an old intelligence officer and war ally. Davis typed, "Need info. Branded alien slaves. Mark glows. Possible tracker. Send details." He attached a photo he had secretly taken of Kari's neck while she was asleep the night before. Then he deleted the image from the system, just in case. Now, all he could do was wait. That night, while the girls sat in silence near the heat lamp, Davis brought out a deck of cards. He dealt them without asking, placing 3 in front of himself, then 3 each for the girls. Alina blinked, unsure. Kari ignored it until she noticed Alina slowly pick one up and stare at it curiously. "It's a game," Davis explained, his voice calm. "No rules to remember today. Just match the colors." Alina looked at him and then whispered, "Games were not allowed before. You're not there anymore." Davis said softly, "You're here now." Kari didn't touch the cards, but she watched Alina's expression change. For the first time, Alina smiled, not fully, but the corners of her lips twitched upward. It didn't last long, because a sharp beep came from Davis's datapad. Message received. He opened it quietly, blocking the screen from there. View confirmed. Mark is not standard tracker. Hybrid ID beacon. These types were used in secret military experiments during the early years of the war. Both targets are rare, but one may have mental conditioning. That signal reactivates, retrieval units could come. Suggest destruction of beacon. Urgent. They are valuable, dangerous. Someone may want them silenced or reclaimed. Davis stared at the message for a long time, so it was truth. These two weren't just unlucky prisoners. They were created, marked, and used, and now they were being hunted. He shut the datapad and looked across the room at Kari. Her eyes were already on him, sharp, narrow, cold. She had seen his reaction. "Someone messaged you," she said flatly. "You know something." Davis didn't deny it. "You're not what the others claimed you were," he said. "You weren't just slaves." Kari stood up, defensive. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you were part of something bigger." Davis replied, "Military experiments. Programs that turned people into tools." He looked at Alina now, who shrank back slightly, her hands trembling. "You were both chosen, trained, maybe. Reprogrammed? We didn't choose anything," Alina whispered. "They used us. Broke us. Then threw us away." Kari took a deep breath. "They marked us, made us do things we didn't understand. Then they branded us as failures." Her voice cracked. "I wasn't allowed to speak for 6 years, Davis. They only activated me to bring someone back to life for let them die again," Alina added. "And I was told to kill without question, my hands." They still remember. Silence filled the room like a heavy blanket. Davis looked at both of them Malian women with scars deeper than flesh. Not enemies, not monsters, just survivors. "We need to remove the beacons," he said firmly. "They'll find you if we don't." Kari narrowed her eyes. "And how will you do that?" "You're no surgeon. I know someone who is," Davis replied. "We'll leave at dawn. I'll get you to safety. But we must hurry." That night, none of them slept. Kari sat by the window with a knife in her hand. Elena held a pillow tight, her glowing eyes never closing, and Davis stayed awake, watching the sky, because the message had warned them mothers were coming. They had to move before the hunters arrived and before the past caught up with them again. The desert wind was dry and cold as the small transport vehicle moved through the rocky paths. Davis sat at the front, steering carefully, eyes scanning every hill and shadow. Elena and Kari sat behind him, silent, alert. Each mile took them farther from the slave market, but closer to the truth. Neither of the alien women had said much since the message. But the tension between them had changed, not angry, not fearful, but something else, like a secret that had been shared. A wound finally shone. Davis stopped the vehicle near an abandoned medical outpost. It was half buried in sand, wires hanging like vines. "This used to be a rebel clinic," he said, stepping out. "A friend of mine worked here. She knew how to remove implants safely." He opened the rusted door with effort, and warm air escaped from inside. The solar generators still worked, weakly, but enough to power the lights and scanners. The place smelled like old medicine and metal. Davis began setting up the surgical table while the girls explored quietly. Kari ran her fingers along the cracked walls. "This place. It smells like healing," she said softly. "I was once forced to heal soldiers in worse places than this." Elena found an old hollow mirror and stared at herself. She touched her cheek where a faint scar ran under her eye. "I was never taught to heal," she said. "I was trained to destroy." Kari turned to her. "They used us for different things, Elena, but they threw us away the same." Elena didn't reply, but her eyes softened for the first time, not because she trusted Kari, but because she finally felt seen. Davis called them over. "I've located the beacons inside your necks," he said. "I can use the surgical laser to cut around them, but you'll need to stay very still." Kari volunteered first. She lay on the table, breathing deeply. Her fists clenched. Elena stood nearby, watching Davis closely. "If you hurt her," she began. "I won't." Davis replied calmly. "She's not a tool. She's not your enemy. She's Kari." The procedure was slow and tense. Davis worked carefully, cutting just deep enough. A soft spark flared as the beacon was removed, thin, metallic, almost invisible. He dropped it into a metal dish. With a hiss, it pulsed once, then went dark. Kari sat up slowly, sweat on her face. "It's out," she whispered, amazed for the first time. "I feel like I'm not being watched." Elena took her place without speaking. She didn't flinch, didn't blink even when the laser touched her skin. She had trained herself long ago to feel nothing. But when the beacon came out, a single tear ran down her cheek. Davis handed her a cloth. She wiped it away quickly. "I wasn't crying," she said. Davis nodded without arguing. "Of course not." He replied with a small smile. With the beacons destroyed, a strange silence filled the outpost. The girl sat beside the heater while Davis checked the perimeter one last time. He felt the weight of something new in the air, not danger, but possibility. Back inside, Kari had started sorting through old medical supplies. She found bandages, herbs, and even a working stim kit. "I can help people again," she said to herself. "I can choose who lives instead of who dies." Elena picked up a small training knife from a shelf. Her fingers remembered the grip perfectly, but instead of aiming to strike, she spun it gently in her palm. A dance of control, not violence. "Why do you still carry weapons?" Kari asked her suddenly. Elena shrugged. Because I don't know who I am without them. Kari stepped forward. You are not just a weapon, Elena. She said quietly. You have a name now. Elena looked down, then slowly nodded. And you are not just a healer, she replied. You are not broken anymore. Just then, Davis entered with a small CUM device in hand. He had intercepted a coded signal. Someone's coming, he said, voice low but steady, not locals. Military pattern. Carrie's eyes narrowed. They tracked us.
No.
Davis replied. They lost us, and now they're looking everywhere. He looked at them both. If you stay, you fight. If you run, I'll cover you, Kari. Stepped forward. No more running, she said. Elena stood beside her, gripping the training blade. If we fight together. Davis looked at them. Two women once chained and branded, now choosing to stand and protect, not just themselves, but each other, and maybe, just maybe, him too. The wind howled through the narrow canyon outside the old outpost. Davis stood at the edge of a cliff, using his old binoculars to scan the horizon. The sky had darkened with clouds. Unusual for this dry region, but it wasn't the weather that worried him. It was the silence. Silence meant movement. It meant someone was close, watching, waiting. Inside, Kari and Elena were checking the emergency supplies. Both now wore simple armor pieces Davis had salvaged from the rebel storeroom. Kari kept the medkit on her back, while Elena had strapped two short blades to her hips. They didn't speak much, but their movements were sharp, purposeful. They had changed, no longer prisoners. Now survivors preparing for war. Davis entered. Quickly, sealing the door behind him. They're here, he said, voice low. Stealth transport. About 2 clicks north, blending with the rocks. 4 or 5 soldiers. Maybe more. Kari's jaw tightened. Retrieval squad. Looks like it, Davis replied. They're not here to talk. Their orders will be to eliminate or extract. Elena grabbed her blades and moved to the window. How long do we have? Minutes, Davis answered. We can still escape through the underground tunnel that leads south if we move now. Kari looked at Elena, then at Davis. If we run, they'll keep chasing us, she said. And next time, we might not be together. Elena nodded. We make our stand here. Davis looked at them both. He saw no fear in their eyes, only fire, and he made his decision. Then, let's make it count. They quickly activated the defense systems Davis had hidden around the outpost. Old turrets, ground mines, and energy shields flickered to life. It wasn't much, but it might be enough. Kari took position near the back entrance, armed with a blaster rifle. Her job was to cover the rear and protect the med supplies. Elena crouched near the front, hidden behind crates, blades ready. She would be the last thing the enemies see if they got close. Davis stayed near the command panel, using old cameras to track movement. Then, he saw them, 4 armored soldiers in black suits, no marks. No names, they moved like ghosts, silent, deadly. One of them scanned the area with a wrist device searching for life signs. They're using signal dampeners. Davis said, no radio, no drones, just direct assault. Then the lights flickered. Power was being jammed. The turrets sputtered and powered down. The shields collapsed. It was starting. The first shot came fast. One of the walls exploded inward, spraying sparks. Kari rolled behind a support beam. Returning fire, her aim was precise. One enemy fell with a hit to the chest. Elena moved like a shadow, silent and swift. She leaped from cover and sliced through the leg of another soldier. He screamed, but she was already gone before he hit the ground. Davis fired from above, his shots slow but accurate. He hit one soldier in the shoulder, then ducked as the wall. Behind him, cracked with blaster fire, Kari shouted, "They're breaching the back. I need help." Elena turned and sprinted, blades flashing. She reached Kari just in time to stop a soldier from throwing a grenade. Her blade cut deep and Kari finished the enemy with a pulse shot. But then, a new danger appeared. A fifth soldier, larger than the rest, stepped into the room through the smoke. His armor was heavier, his mask red. He carried a long electro spear. "Target confirmed," the man said in a metallic voice. "Return or perish." "No," Kari whispered. Stepping forward, "You don't get to control us anymore." The soldier lunged, fast, too fast. His spear grazed Kari's side, making her stumble back. But Elena jumped between them with both blades raised. The clash was brutal. Metal against energy, sparks flying. Davis tried to aim, but couldn't get a clear shot without risking them both. Kari, bleeding, grabbed a shock grenade from her belt and shouted, "Down!" She threw it directly at the soldier's feet. The blast was loud and bright. When the light faded, the man was on the floor, twitching. Elena kicked the weapon from his hand and placed her blade at his throat. "Say it," she growled. "Say our names, not our numbers." The man didn't answer. Elena pressed the blade harder. "We're not tools," Kari said through clenched teeth. "We are not slaves." The soldier stared at them both. Then his mask flickered. "Kari, Elena." He said slowly, "Too late. They're coming." He passed out before he could finish. Davis rushed over and checked the systems. "There's a signal being broadcast. It's a beacon. They've marked this location." Elena stood still, shaking. "They'll send more," Kari placed her hand on Elena's shoulder. "Then we move again," she said. "But this time not as runaways." Davis looked at them both. "You're right," he said. "We fight together now, no matter what." They didn't just survive the attack. They made a stand, and though the hunters had come, the hunted had teeth of their own now. The sun was setting behind the red hills as smoke rose from the burned-out outpost. The air was filled with the sharp scent of ash, metal, and blood. Elena stood on top of the ridge, her blades dripping with dark green liquid not hers. Kari sat below with Davis, wrapping a bandage around his bleeding arm. His face was pale, but his eyes still sharp. The fight was over for now, but they all knew this was only the beginning. The soldier with the red mask had been taken inside and locked in a holding chamber. Still unconscious, but alive, Davis didn't kill him, not yet. There were questions that needed answers. As Kari tied the final knot around his wound, Davis looked at her and asked, "Do you still want to run?" Kari didn't blink. "No," she said quietly, "running never gave me peace." This did. She looked around at the outpost, the wreckage, and the three of them, still breathing. "This is where I feel free." Elena returned from outside, her body dusty and her breathing heavy. "I burned the beacon," she said, dropping a melted chip on the table. "They'll know someone stopped the signal, but not where we went next." Davis nodded, but his expression was grim. "They won't stop," he said. "They'll send more and stronger ones next time." Kari walked to the storage box and pulled out a black case. She opened it slowly, revealing old rebel teak-armored vests, power gloves, and a heavy pulse launcher. "I think it's time we stopped hiding," she said. "If they want a war, they'll get one." Elena raised her eyebrow. "You sound like a soldier now." Kari gave a small smile. "I was forced to heal the broken. Now I'll protect the living." Davis stood, wincing slightly from the pain. "I know someone who might help us," he said. "She used to lead a resistance cell not far from here. She hates the retrieval squads. If we get to her, we might stand a chance." The three of them packed quickly, gathering everything useful: food, medicine, weapons, and water. As night fell, they moved out, leaving behind the outpost that had sheltered them and nearly became their grave. Their new vehicle was a rough desert rover, half covered in rust. But fast and strong, Elena drove, Kari navigated, and Davis watched the scanner with tired eyes. They traveled in silence until Kari spoke. What will we do if we meet others like us? Davis looked at her. You mean other branded? Kari nodded. There could be more. Chained. Discarded. We save them. Alina answered before Davis could. Like we were saved. The desert gave way to rocky canyons as they approached. A hidden valley. That's where Davis's contact was last seen. A woman named Captain Naira, human rebel who had escaped death a dozen times. But as they neared the canyon, they saw it, a small outpost, burning, smoke rising into the black. Sky Alina stopped the rover at the top of the hill. Below, bodies lay in the dirt, and fire danced over broken walls. No? Davis whispered. She was too careful. Suddenly, a blast rocked the hill. The ground cracked, and the rover flipped sideways, sending them flying. Kari hit the rocks hard. Lena rolled to her feet, blades drawn. Davis grabbed a rifle and scanned the cliffs from above. 3 enemy skimmers descended like shadows with engines glowing red. Elite hunters heavily armored, fast, and ruthless. They were waiting, Elena growled. They expected us to come here. Kari stumbled to her feet, blood dripping from her forehead. Davis helped her up, whispering, We make our last. Stand here. They ran to a nearby cave entrance and took cover behind old stone pillars. Blaster fire rained down around them, sparks flying. Elena moved like a ghost slipping between cover, throwing her blade, taking out 1 skimmer pilot before vanishing. Kari set up the pulse launcher and took a deep breath. Cover me, she said. Davis nodded and opened fire at the enemy, drawing their attention. Kari aimed carefully and fired. The shot hit one of the skimmers midair, sending it crashing into the canyon wall. The explosion lit up the sky like lightning. Elena landed beside Kari, panting. That was 1, she said. Kari smirked. 2 more. They fought together. Backs touching, breath matching. One was once a healer, the other an assassin now. They were something new, something stronger. Davis limped forward. Dragging the last pulse grenade, he saw the 3rd skimmer charging for a dive. Without thinking, he tossed the grenade and dived for cover. The explosion ripped through the sky. And fire rained down. Silence followed, just wind and ashes. They had one again, but Davis didn't rise. Kari rushed to him, rolling him over. Blood stained his side. He's breathing, she said quickly, but barely. Elena knelt beside him. She grabbed Davis's hand and whispered, You don't get to leave us. Davis's eyes fluttered open. He looked at the 2 women beside him and smiled. Weak but real. I told you. He whispered, We're not done yet. Above them, the night sky glowed red from the burning wreckage, and in that fire, 3 lives once lost, once broken, became psalm. The sky above the canyon was quiet now. Black smoke rose in the distance, but the stars still shined through. The battle was over, but the war was not. Inside a small hidden cave, dimly lit by old lanterns, Colonel Davis lay on a makeshift bed, his chest rising slowly. Kari sat beside him, pressing a fresh bandage to his side. Her hands were steady, her expression calm, but her eyes held deep worry. Alina stood near the entrance, watching the night with both blades resting beside her. She didn't speak much, not tonight. She had killed again. And even though she had done it to protect, the old feelings were returning. Davis groaned softly, and Kari leaned closer. You're safe, she whispered. You're with us. He opened his eyes, slow and heavy. I feel like I got hit by a tank, he muttered. Kari gave a faint smile. You almost did. Alina stepped closer, her voice quiet. We need to move before sunrise. That explosion will bring scavengers. Davis nodded slightly. We can't stay here, he said. But I don't want to keep running either. Kari looked at him. Then what do we do? Davis stared at the rocky ceiling, his mind racing. We create something new, he said. We build a place. For people like you, Elena raised an eyebrow. People like us. Branded, he said, discarded, hunted, forgotten. The ones no one helped. He turned to them. You weren't given a choice. But now, you have one. Kari leaned back, her voice soft. I never imagined freedom would feel like this. I used to dream of escape. But now I want something more. Elena crossed her arms, still unsure. I've never built anything, she said. I only know how to destroy. You learned how to protect, Davis said gently. You saved me, Elena. You saved Kari. She lowered her gaze, her voice smaller. I don't want to be a weapon anymore. Kari touched her shoulder. Then don't, she said. Be our shield, not their sword. There was silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy, it was peaceful. Like a long breath after holding it for too many years, by morning they had packed their things and left the canyon. They traveled south, deep into uncharted lands. There were no cities, no systems only. Freedom. Days passed, and they found shelter in an old ruin hidden by nature. Vines covered the walls, but the structure was strong. There, they built something simple, quiet, but safe. Davis taught Kari how to fix old machines. She restored the medical bay first. Smiling as she healed the first injured traveler who found their door, Elena trained every morning. But not to fight, she taught herself balance, patience, how to move without fear, and slowly. Others came, a young alien boy with a missing arm, a girl with no voice, branded like Kari, a broken android with emotions that never shut off. They came from far places, some running, some searching, and every time Davis welcomed them. Kari healed them. Elena protected them. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Kari sat beside Davis near the garden they had planted. She watched the small lights flicker across the hills. Others had built homes nearby. A small village now stood where once there was only silence. You never gave up on us, she said, her eyes soft. Even when we didn't trust you, Davis looked at her and smiled. I didn't save you, he replied. You saved yourselves. Elena walked over, wiping sweat from her forehead. She had just returned from training a group of orphans. How to defend without killing? They're learning fast, she said. Sitting beside them, none of them have chains now. Kari nodded. Because someone gave them a choice. Davis looked at both of them, strong, free, alive, and asked, do you still want to keep those names? Kari thought for a moment, then smiled. Yes, she said proudly. Kari was the first name I chose for myself. Elena looked at the stars before answering. Elena means quiet flame in my old language, she whispered. Now, it means. Me, Davis, stood slowly, feeling his body still healing but his spirit whole. Then we build this place around those names, he said. A home for those who never had one. Kari laughed softly. A place where no one is given away, and no one has to choose only one, Elena smirked. Because sometimes the right choice is both. They all laughed together, the stars above them brighter than ever. The past still lived in their scars, but the future was alive in there. Hearts, a healer, an assassin, and the soldier who refused to pick one. They became more than survivors, they became family, and together they wrote a new story, not of war, not of chains, but of freedom, love, and the power to choose.